Good morning, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thanks for joining us at another Bloomerang Academy class. I am your instructor. My name's John Coleman. I'm a technical writer here at Bloomerang, and I've got a background working in IT support and customer support roles, so kind of a mix of helping customers and technical troubleshooting has kind of led me to where I'm at right now. And outside of Bloomerang, I love to get outside. I love biking and hiking. And when I'm inside, I like playing games, board games and video games, things that kind of keep my mind working and things like that. I love working at Bloomerang, so I'm really excited to present with you guys today. And as a reminder, we have more classes that are always available with our Academy classes. If you go to bloomerang.co/academy/COVID-19, that's where we're kind of concentrating all of our Academy resources at the moment. You can check out upcoming classes, and there's all kinds of resources there on previous topics that you can view, and it's a really great resource spot. So be sure to check that out. And we always like to point out that when you're in Bloomerang using your database, you can click the question mark icon in the upper right-hand corner, and that'll give you access to all kinds of helpful stuff. You can go, if you click help in videos, that'll take you away to our knowledge base, where we have all kinds of help articles discussing all kinds of topics, and oftentimes you might find your answer there if you're confused about how to do something. But we also have a great support team here at Bloomerang. They love helping you guys out. So you can email support via this menu, or you can also start a live chat. And these are support options that are available to you regardless of what kind of database you have. They come with the package. So we always encourage people to make sure to take advantage of those resources, because our support team is really great, and they know how to help you get things done if you're finding yourself stuck on something. And so today we're going to be talking about getting started with online giving. It's really a good thing to focus on at this point in time, and so let's talk about our agenda. First, I'm going to discuss why you might need to do some online fundraising. Then we're going to go over the essentials for getting started with online giving. And these are kind of like the laying the groundwork in my mind for how to get started with online giving. So during this time, I'm going to discuss how to create a campaign, how to choose and add a transaction processor, how to add our fraud prevention tools, which are necessary for your form to display on your website. And then I'll go over actually creating an online form within Bloomerang. Then we'll move on to the next section and talk about getting your form to your constituents. So this is just the various ways that you can add a form to your website. There's a Bloomerang hosted version of the form available, and you can also use our email editor to send a link out to solicit donations via an email that'll point them to the online giving form. And lastly, we'll talk about keeping track and following up. So by that point, you've got a form going for a while. You want to make sure that you can keep track of it and start building relationships with your donors with some of the tools that we have available. So let's get into the first section here. Why would you want to do online fundraising? Well, we've got some statistics here that I think are helpful. 54% of donors worldwide prefer to give online. 67% of nonprofits across the globe are set up to accept online donations. So that's a good deal of donors that like to give, and an even larger number of nonprofits are already doing this. Online giving in the United States represents 8.5% of total fundraising revenue. I think we might see that go up this year. And also online fundraising revenue at U.S. nonprofits rose 10% on a year-over-year basis in 2019. So all of this data is based on 2019. In 2020, I think we're going to, obviously see a lot of this online participation escalate quite a bit. And so this is a good time to get online fundraising set up with your Bloomerang database if you didn't already have it set up. So at that point, I'm going to go ahead and jump out of my slides and get into this is my demo database. It's just for a fake nonprofit that set up for demonstration purposes. And so we're going to move along here and talk about the essentials for getting started with online giving. So the first thing that we kind of think would be good to do is to set up a campaign in your Bloomerang database that is dedicated to keeping track of your online fundraising efforts. So campaigns track these large fundraising efforts and they're aimed at raising a goal of money. It's a great idea to set up a specific campaign for these online fundraising efforts, and you're able to associate campaigns with online giving forms so that everything that is raised via that form would go towards the campaign. So if you look here on my dashboard of this database, down here in the campaign progress area, I've got online fundraising is showing up, and that's what I've named a campaign to associate with online fundraising. And I've got it here to show first. When I first log in, it shows me exactly what's going on with that campaign as when I first log in. So how did I get it there? If I click settings and then campaigns, you can see a list of different campaigns that have been set up in this database, and online fundraising is here at the top. If you click on that, you can see it just has a name, it's marked as active, it's got a goal with a start date and an end date. And the important things to note are that you definitely need to have a name, but you also should have a goal. And so as long as you have a goal, it will display on your dashboard. And so I'm going to go ahead and cancel out. And the reason that displays first and foremost on my dashboard is because I have it at the top of the list. If you check these out, you can actually drag and drop these around and change the order of them. And whichever one is on top is what's going to display on the dashboard. So if I were to come in here and I was creating this for the first time, I'd just go ahead and click New in the upper right-hand corner. I'd give it that name, the goal. It's automatically marked active, and then I would go ahead and click Save. So if we head back to the dashboard, after you initially add this campaign, you might also notice that it doesn't immediately display in the campaign progress here. And that's just because everything on the dashboard is not automatically updated in a constant fashion. It gets updated nightly. And that's just a consideration for traffic, to keeping traffic down a little bit with our databases. But you can always refresh manually what you see on your dashboard. In order to do that, you just want to click this refresh button here, and it is different than the refresh button that you would normally use on another web page, just any old web page. There's a specific refresh button in the dashboard, and that's all that does is it just tells our servers, hey, we want to see the latest on this dashboard. Can you please send it along over here? And so if you don't immediately see your campaign in your dashboard, but you click that refresh, it should show up. And so that's why you can see mine here right now. Okay, so that's adding a campaign. That's kind of the first thing you want to do. The next thing that we would like to do is choose and add a transaction processor. So if you have a transaction processor set up in your database, you can process transactions directly in Bloomerang, and you can create forms that will accept online donations. So it's kind of one of the first things to do regardless. I think if you're going to be doing any transactions with your database, but definitely if you want to use an online giving form, it's kind of a mandatory thing to do. So real quick, I can show you on our website. If you go to bloomerang.co and then if you click features and payment processing right here, you'll see on our website a discussion about the two main transaction processors that we offer. We have integrations with Stripe and Moolah. Oftentimes we recommend going with Stripe because it's a little bit cheaper and they've got some really robust tools that you can use. However, if your database, if you anticipate a need to be able to process EFT transactions often, maybe your constituents would end up using a lot of EFT to make donations, you would want to go with Moolah in that case. But otherwise, it's kind of recommended to check out Stripe. If you go to this page and you head down here, you can actually you can get a link to email Stripe to discuss nonprofit rates, and start a conversation with them if you were interested in going with Stripe for your transaction processor. So once you've kind of done your research, decided which processor you think would be best, in your database, you can go ahead and add the processor, and you can start right in your database to get that done. So if you click Settings, and then View All Settings, followed by Transactions, and then Transaction Processors, that'll take you to the Transaction Processors section in the database. And that's the main dashboard for where you're going to get these things set up. And you notice it's kind of tucked away, buried a few levels in the settings, and that's because you're not really going to have to be here too often. You kind of just get it set up, and then that's it. But so you can see here, I've got a few set up for demo purposes in this database. If you were to go ahead and use Stripe, you would connect with Stripe Connect, and basically this is what it looks like after it's set up. There's not a whole ton here, but you've got a name that you provided. You would mark it default. I don't have this one marked as default because I actually use another processor just for demo purposes, but it would be your default processor, it would be active, and you'd have your name right there. And you have it's just a few links over here on the side. If you click this, it'll take you to your Stripe dashboard. So if you needed to get in there and check anything out, you can certainly do that from here. And in the event that you were going to disconnect this transaction processor, you can do that here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just click Cancel. And once again, if I was creating something new, you got the New button up here in the right-hand corner, and you would just go ahead and click, in this case, Stripe Processor, and it gives you a couple options. You can add an existing Stripe account, or you can create a new Stripe account. If you happen to come to Bloomerang and you already had a Stripe account, that would be appropriate to just go ahead and add your existing one. But you can, of course, just start a new process here as well. And I'll go ahead and click, I'm not going to go through all of the steps, but I'll just click Create New just to show you kind of where you go. It just takes you off to a special Bloomerang page on the Stripe site, and you just you fill out your basic information for your nonprofit, and after you go through all these steps, you would end up clicking Authorize Access to this account here at the bottom, and that will bring you right back here, and you'll have a connected Stripe processor in your database. So at this point, we've created a Bloomerang campaign to keep track of our donations that are coming in via an online form, and we've added a transaction processor. Before we can dig into the actual form itself, we need to add some fraud prevention tools, and we've got a couple of different fraud prevention tools that we offer in the database. One of which is required for your form to display correctly on a website. So that's why we definitely make sure to note it in this class that you need to go ahead and get that set up before you really move along to going and creating a form. So in order to get to those, your fraud prevention tools, you can click the gear icon here for settings again. This time you can just click website integration. And then here at the bottom, we've got form settings. And this is where we can get these fraud prevention tools all set up and ready to go in your database. The first one I'm going to talk about is captcha. It's a service offered from Google. It's basically, if you've ever filled out a form elsewhere and you had to click the box that says "I'm not a robot," that's what a Google recaptcha integration is, that is added to forms at certain times to help prevent fraud. This is the piece of the fraud prevention tools that is required in order for our forms to display correctly on your website. So this is definitely something that you should get set up. And how you would do that is you would head to this form settings area, and then I kind of recommend just going ahead and clicking off to this knowledge base article that tells you step by step exactly what you need to do to get this fully set up. And I won't go through each and every step on here. It's got basically all the steps that you need to do in order to set up captcha, but I can show you a little bit more about what's involved. Basically, you would end up going off to Google's recaptcha site, and you click the admin console up here. And I believe you would be, it'll discuss in the help doc, but you should click create since I've already got one, I'm just going to go ahead and click settings. And basically, you'll just go through these steps really quick to set up a recaptcha account with Google. You can label it whatever you choose. Mine's just a demo, so I call it Bloomerang. You can name it, your org's name. It could be the name of your website, whatever works for you. You would need to choose recaptcha v2. That's really important, and that's also mentioned in the help document. If you choose v2, that's the one that we need to have in order to work on our forms with Bloomerang. There's a v1 and a v3. V2 is what you're going to want to check out there. You'll need to provide the domain of your website. So this is a demo website that I have, but it would be, if I were doing this for Bloomerang, the example would be bloomerang.co, and that's it. So what you want is basically the root name of your website. Your donation form might end up on a page that's a few layers beneath that, right? But you just want the actual domain of your website in here, because that's all that Google needs to see in order for the recaptcha feature to work correctly on your website. So once you have gone through a few of those steps and saved, you'll be provided with these keys. And these might look familiar from the previous screen. These are what I added into the database. So once this is officially set up correctly, you'll get these API keys, and all you have to do is copy and paste them into the right places in your database. So we've got copy site key and copy secret key. If I go back to my database, I've got a site key and a secret key field right here. They've just been copy pasted on over. And then that's just about it. That'll provide some added security. It'll prevent fraud. The main fraud that we're trying to prevent is if sometimes people on the internet will use bots to attack a form like this and basically try to run a bunch of fraudulent transactions to test stolen credit card numbers. And by enabling this, we just shut that down without having to deal with that, and that saves you a lot of headache. It saves us headache from cleaning it up. It's the right thing to do. It's a good thing to have set up on your form. So the next thing that you can do with our fraud prevention tools, and in this case it is optional, but depending on the situation that you might want to have it on or you might want to have it turned off, but you can enable what is called rate limiting. It's on the IP addresses. So an IP address is basically whenever you're using the internet, the internet sees your computer or your phone identified by a number, and that's what an IP address is. So with IP rate limiting, if you have that enabled on your form and somebody was trying to manually enter a bunch of transactions that maybe they didn't need to be entering, after a certain point, it'll just shut them down. So the captcha will stop a bot from trying to just slam the form with a bunch of transactions, but the rate limiting will stop a human being from manually entering those. And depending on your situation, you maybe don't want that to be on. Maybe you're having an event, maybe like an online fundraising event, and you just anticipate having a lot of traffic coming to your form. And maybe for some reason, maybe one person at one computer is entering a lot of donations for friends and colleagues somehow. You maybe would want to turn off the rate limiting in that case, just so that nothing gets in the way of them being able to enter all these transactions. But it's kind of a case-by-case basis. Oftentimes it's okay to just leave it on, but if you're anticipating something, you might want to leave it off. Okay, so at this point in time, we have created a campaign, we've added a transaction processor, and we've set up our fraud prevention tools. So now we can talk more about an actual online giving form. This is where we're going to be raising our funds from. So what I'll do is I'll head in the database first to show you where these forms are, and then I'm going to show you the form as it is on a demo website that I have. So if I click the gear icon for settings here again, and then I click website integration, this will bring us back to this menu. and it's got a list of different tools that you can use online. And the first 5 of these are different types of forms that we offer. Today we're focused primarily on online giving forms, but we also have event registration forms, email sign-up forms, volunteer activity forms, and constituent information forms. If you look next to the online giving form and the event registration forms, they both have a gift icon next to them. That just indicates that these are transaction-based forms. You might see those icons elsewhere in the database. It's just kind of a universal, like this is a transaction icon. And then next to these, the 3 remaining forms, there's the, I don't know how to say that. It's like a talk balloon. Those are interaction-based forms, and so you might see those on that icon on interactions elsewhere in the database. But we're just focused on online giving forms here today, so we'll go there. And I just have one active form in here at the moment. It's called online donations, and this is the form I'm using for my demo database that to display a form and to gather online donations from. So before we go into actually how to set up the form, I'm just going to show you really quick on my demo website here. So this is a demo website that I put together. It's for my fake nonprofit that offers pro bono web design and web development work. And basically, I just set this up in a way that's really geared. It's taking a website and making it really focused on fundraising. So if you notice, you come here and the first thing you see is a big hero section, kind of explaining a little more about who we are, and a button there that's immediately asking for a donation. I think this is an effective way to design and organize your website if you're trying to really gear your website towards gathering donations. So if I go ahead and click the donate button here, that will take us away to my donation page that I set up on this website. And on the left is just some content. On the right is the actual form that I have made in Bloomerang, and then I am displaying on my website. So we'll go through it really quick. If you look here, we've got different levels with some descriptions that your constituents can donate to. So it's really useful to explain what a certain dollar amount might mean to you. There's like some psychology behind that, right? It's meaningful to someone to see, oh, well, $10, okay, that'll get him lunch, but $25 is going to put gas in his car so that he can keep getting around and working. And then I've got some other levels here. $100 is going to pay for the internet service that we need to use for the month, and then beyond that, $250 in this organization would be considered, a large gift. And so I just have some text here that says, "Wow, thanks so much." They also have the option to choose an other amount, so they can add however much they want. We're going to go ahead and just do $10. They have an option to show support by making it a recurring donation. So if they check this will turn the donation into a recurring donation schedule within your database. From there, they just need to fill out some basic information. I've got some autocomplete stuff here. But they would add their first name, last name, email, phone, billing address. These are all required, so they can't submit the form without adding these. And then at the bottom, we've got some additional information. And what they can do here is this is actually a custom field that I've added into this form. This is a transaction-based custom field where all it is just doing a little bit of tracking to find out kind of how people are finding this form, how people are hearing about this organization. So I set it up just kind of imagining this nonprofit having a lot of social media presence. And so they can optionally click this and just say, well, yeah, I saw you on Facebook. So that's kind of how I wound up here. To me, I think this is something useful if that's the approach you're taking, is you're doing a lot of social media and you want to, just see if people are paying attention to that, and that's how they're finding out about your website. Next, they also have some optional comments that they can fill out. And then they have this very last section. They can, the title of it says increase my impact, but what it is they basically can check this to help offset bank fees. And so this 53 cents is based on the $10 donation amount. And then the rate with the transaction processor. So it's something that's calculated automatically. It'll change depending on how much they're giving. But this is a really nice feature because those small bank fees can really add up for you. And oftentimes when people are giving, they're more than happy to go ahead and offset something like that. So then you get the full amount of the donation with your organization. And lastly, there is this recaptcha piece that I showed a little bit before. This is that fraud prevention tool that had to be set up. And all I have to do is click I'm not a robot. And so Google understands that I am just a human being entering this donation. So I can go ahead and click enter payment. If you set up a Stripe account now, it'll look slightly different than what's displaying on the screen, but it's roughly the same. The credit card information will be entered in a different location is all. But it's very similar to this, and what will happen is it auto fills in the name, and we can go ahead and do a test credit card number. This is just a test Visa number that allows you to test transactions. And I'll give it a fake expiration date, hit 1, 2, 3 there, and go ahead and click donate. Takes it a second to process. And then we've got this custom thank you message that's just you can adjust this in the database. I'll show you how, but it's just a thank you for the gift with some links out to social media presence here. They can tweet, they can follow, just take some next steps after having donated there. So at this point, I'll go ahead and jump back into the database, and I'll show you that form as it was set up in Bloomerang. I'll go ahead and click online donations, and here's where I set all this up. So at the top, you just got to give the form a name. I like to use something meaningful like online donations or donations from the website, something that lets you know that you're going to use this form on your website later. This is automatically checked, but you can also deactivate a form if you felt like you needed to. Maybe you just were done with it and you were going to create another one. You can deactivate our forms, but it's marked active here. The next step is choosing your transaction processor. I have a few different options, and I just have it set to Stripe. This is also why we go ahead and set up a transaction processor first before trying to go set up a form, because you're kind of stuck right here before you can go further if you don't already have your transaction processor set up. The next area is all about the confirmation email that gets sent out whenever a constituent donates via this form. And so it's currently set to Bloomerang's default confirmation email, and I can actually show you that really quick. Actually, I might need to pull it up. But there's a confirmation email that is sent. Here, I can pull it up right now. This is what they'll see after they submit the donation. This is the confirmation email that'll come right back. So this is the default version that I have it set up as right now for this form. It's a little bit outside of the scope of this class, but you can actually design a custom confirmation email and choose that here in your form to use instead. In order to do that, all you would want to do is make an email with transaction filters and its purpose set to acknowledgement. And if you do that, the email will be available to use in this form for your confirmation email. But without any effort at all, you've got this default confirmation email that gets sent out. And it really does cover all the details. So if you're comfortable with that, you're good to go with that. Next is the notification email section. So this is who within your database is going to be notified whenever a donation comes in. It automatically notifies the organization email. So whatever you have your organization email address set up as will receive that email. But let's say you have someone at your organization you've put in charge of online donations. This is just kind of what they're doing. You might want to add their email address here so that they get those notification emails every time there's a new donation coming in. And I can show you really quick what that email looks like. So this was what the notification email that gets sent after a new donation comes in looks like. It's got a lot of details and basically just lets you know, here's everything that just happened. You just got this donation. Here's some details about it. So next, in the form settings, we can set up fund, campaign, and appeal. You absolutely have to have a fund. In this case, I just have it set to general or operating, which is just kind of one of the default funds in the database. You can change that, and you can also add additional funds. So maybe if you wanted to give them an option to choose specifically where this donation should be applied, you can add these additional funds. And whenever you do that, I'll be able to show you in just a little bit. It'll automatically update on the website and provide them with the option to choose where these funds, where their funds are going to go with your organization. So maybe you just want all of your online donations to just go to like an unrestricted fund. That's perfectly fine. Or maybe you have different projects going on and you would like them to, be able to pick where it's going. That's kind of what this tool is designed for. And next, we have campaigns and appeals. I just have a campaign set here. You can optionally also add an appeal. The campaign is also technically optional, but in terms of what we're kind of thinking is a best practice, it makes sense to go ahead and set up that campaign and apply it to your online giving form so that you can keep track of it with a campaign. So you can see that mine is set for online fundraising. Next, you have some options that you can change with recurring donations. You can check either of these boxes, and with the first one, you can allow the donor to select the frequency. So that'll give them the ability to choose how often the recurring donation comes in. By default, it's monthly, but if you check this, they'll get more options, and maybe they want to give a large amount annually. They can choose to do that, and it'll set up a recurring donation that is just annually for a certain amount. You can also check the box that allows them to select the start date. So maybe they're doing a recurring donation, but they want the recurring donations to begin next month. So that would be an appropriate box to check if you feel that that's something that you want to provide an option for. Next, we have the true impact area. And this is where, when it asks at the bottom of the form if they would like to offset the fees of their gift, this was checked within my database. And so I think that's something that I do believe it's checked automatically. If not, just make sure to check it. I think it's a great idea to go ahead and use this because oftentimes if people are willing to give, they're going to go ahead and check that box. And those savings will definitely add up over time. Followed by that section, we've got our donation levels section. And so this is where we had these different suggested amounts. I know it's at the bottom of these settings, but it was kind of at the top of the form on the website. And so it's just got these different amounts, and the impact statements are those suggestions, those explanations of what that dollar amount might do. And so it's really useful to go ahead and fill those out and just mention what this amount of money is worth to you. Here at the bottom, I've got it's a custom fields area. And basically, this is how I was able to get that "How did you hear about us?" option to select on the form. And this is actually a transaction-based custom field that I created before I started this form. And custom fields are a little bit beyond the scope of this class, but what I can tell you now is that you would want to set up a transaction-based custom field for this so that it ties whatever answer they have to this question to the transaction, as opposed to necessarily updating their constituent profile. And I can show you really quick. If you just click settings, there's a whole custom fields area, and you would click transaction. That's where I went to set this particular transaction or custom field up. So once we've set up everything on this page, we can go ahead and click next. And this will take us to step 2. So this is the very first area here is the success page. And whenever I finish donating on the website, that's where you saw the "You are awesome, your generous gift has been processed. We truly appreciate your continued support" message. It should still be up, yeah. So that's how that was, that's where I set this up in order for that to display on the website. And oftentimes that's a perfectly good solution. If you have a really robust website that you would like to have a custom thank you page built for, you can of course do that. And what you would do is you would want to click redirect to URL, and then you would add the page of that custom thank you page, the URL of that page. And that's a nice touch. It's kind of like the custom thank you email. If you wanted to go a little bit further, you could just create a whole special page that really reinforces your thanks for the gift that they've donated. But of course, the build in Bloomerang option is pretty nice, and it doesn't take nearly as much effort. It's very simple to set up here. The next section is just the sharing options. You saw those on my form when I finished the donation. You can set up Twitter, Facebook. There's various options within those. You can have a tweet button that allows them to tweet at you, or you can set up a follow button that just it takes them off to follow your organization on Twitter. Similar options with Facebook. They can share about your organization, or they can just like your organization via those clicks. From there, we pretty much have everything set up, and we can go ahead and click Save and Preview. And this page, it previews how the form, not necessarily how it's going to be styled on your website, but it's the information that's going to be available in the form. So if you scroll down, it should show you, this should look familiar as I've shown it to you on the website, but it's basically the same thing. It's got the different levels of donations that they can give. It's all those options that you saw before are here, and you can it's just a spot where you can check everything out before you go ahead and publish. So we're going to go ahead and publish, and that will segue us to our next section where we're talking about getting your form out to your constituents. But really fast, I do want to just show, if I can refresh this page, since I made that one change where they were allowed to choose where their donation is going, which fund, making that change, saving and publishing the form automatically updated my website. And so now if I were to come here again, I can choose wherever I would like the donation to go. So all those things that were set up in the form, I can change and edit those automatically, and it will automatically display on the website so long as you click through the options and you save and publish the form again. So that's really nice. Once everything is set up, you can make edits to the form pretty easily from within Bloomerang. So now that we've got our background with the campaign, the transaction processor, the fraud tools, and now even the form are set up, I want to talk about how to get the form out to your constituents. What are the different ways that we can get this out there to people so that they can start donating? And so I'll jump back into the database. And so how did that form start displaying on my website? What did I do? Well, all I did was I took this code right here. And I know it's it's JavaScript. It's just a bunch of nothing. You don't really have to worry about what it says. You can just copy it, copy that code. And then I'm not going to jump into the website editor because there's all kinds of different websites and you might have a different setup. I'm almost certain that you do. So it just kind of depends on your website editor, your tools that you have. But what you can do is you go in to your the tools that you have, and with my website I was able to add custom HTML, and that just gave me a little section where I was able to copy paste that code snippet that I took from the website. So I copied it, or I took from my database. So I copied it from the database, I pasted it in the tools with my website builder, and then that makes this form display. One other thing to note is this: it's increasingly less common, but you do also need to have an SSL certificate on your website for the form to display. And all that is if you're using Chrome, all the main browsers will tell you this. If you see this little padlock icon up here, or if you look at the entire URL, it says HTTPS. It's basically just saying that this site has a secure connection. It's called a certificate, and the website is secure. And so since I have that and my fraud prevention tools set up, the form displays correctly on the website. I say it's increasingly more rare because it's just common practice for website builders to add this automatically. Like you just go in, you build a new website, and there it is. You may find that you don't have it, in which case you might have to talk to IT support, or maybe the support for the website builder that you have, in order to get that security certificate set up with your website. But it is something that's needed additionally to make sure that this displays. Again, 9 times out of 10, hopefully you don't have to even worry about that. But so that's one way to get the form out to constituents. It's now displaying on my website, right? You notice also that it looks quite a bit like my website, and that's because our forms they're designed to basically inherit the styles and themes of your website just by virtue of being there. And so it looks quite a bit like the website without much effort at all. All I did was copy paste that snippet. It's on my website. It looks like it belongs here. Yeah, so that's basically how that works. So from here, if you don't have a website, or you're just running into some kind of issue, just having a hard time getting your form to display correctly on your website, you're not lost. You do have access with our transaction-based forms to use a Bloomerang hosted form. And so I can show you really quick where you can access that in your database. If you click Settings, Website Integration, Online Giving Forms, and then if you click this drop-down arrow next to this, next to the form that you're working with, you'll see some options show up. One of which is Edit, which is kind of the same difference as if just clicking on the title. You can copy the form. This allows you, maybe if you want to make another form that's quite similar, but you just want to make a few changes, you can just copy it and it'll create a new form, and then you can edit from there. You can go straight to the Preview and Publish page. You can deactivate the form, but the main thing I'm trying to demonstrate here is clicking this View Hosted Form option. So if you do that, there is a version of this form that's hosted with your Bloomerang database. So if you just did not have, again, if you don't have a website, you're having some issues getting the form to display. If you're working with a transaction-based form like this, you have a Bloomerang hosted version that you can certainly use. And so this, obviously, it's not the exact same as if it was on my website, but it's the same form. It's got the same functionality, and it's very usable. It's something that you can and definitely use as opposed to trying to embed it onto your website. I kind of like adding the embedding on the website if you are able to do so, but this is just a great option if you really need to get this form going, but it's not working out with your website exactly. The third thing that we can do, so you could either add it to your website, you can use this hosted version. The third thing that you can do is you can send this form out using our email tools. You can basically create like a solicitation email with a link off to this form. And so I'll show you really quick an example of doing that. If you click the email icon in your database and then email templates, I have an email that I already set up. It's just titled Libre Pixels Donation. And I can't quite go into the full steps you need to take to design an email in the time that we have. But this is just a very quick kind of sparse example of what you can do. Right here, I just have a little bit of copy that's just talking about who we are, please donate, and then I have this donate button here. So if I click that, you'll notice in the settings for this button, I have a direct link to the donation page on my website. So I got that just right here. So I have this already set up on my website. I just copied this whole thing right here, this whole URL, and that's what I added to the URL when I had a button here. If you have like specific brand colors and colors that you would like to use, you can add those here. This is what's called a hex code for the colors. If you have that, you can use that and it'll set it up exactly, or you can click this color picker if you're not sure exactly what that code of your color should be. You can use the color picker to choose instead. And then you have some other button options in here as well. But the main thing I wanted to illustrate is when you add a button to your page, you can add this URL to link out to the form. And you can link to either the Bloomerang hosted version of the form, or you can link to, in this case, I have it on a website. And I should show you really quick, if you were going to add a button, you would first want to drop in a row so that you have some area to work, and then you would click content and then drag and drop a button. So that's all I did to get that button there. And if you click on it, you can rename it and you can add the URL here. You can change the color. You can do all kinds of things. But that's basically all you got to do to get that URL into a button onto an email that you can send out to your constituents. Okay, so at this point, we've gone through all the steps of what's needed to be able to create an online giving form. We've created an online giving form, and we've used a couple of different tools to get the online giving form out to different people, whether it's on an email or adding it to our website or whatever. So now it's always a good idea to go ahead and keep track so that you can just monitor how your online giving is doing, and you can also use that information to reach out to donors to personally thank them for giving to your organization. So we're going to head back to the dashboard here. And the first thing that we can do is we're kind of coming full circle here, and we can check out the campaign progress here on the dashboard. So I have this set up so that online fundraising is the first thing on the dashboard. Someone just donated through that form. So this right here on the dashboard is showing me how that progress is going, how my efforts in online fundraising are going. If you notice, this hasn't updated yet, and that's again because I have to click refresh here to get the latest. And so now you can see that extra $10 click in that I gave via the form on my website. So that's one way to keep track. Another way, while still working with this campaign, is to use our reporting tools. So if you click the reporting icon over here, go to reports list, we're going to go ahead and create a new one. So we'll click build a report from scratch and then transactions. So now I'm setting up a transaction-based report and I'm going to add some filters for keeping track of what's going on with my form. So the first filter that I can do is I can click the green add filter button here, and then I can do online. I can search for online form, and then I can just add the name of that form. So that form is called online donations. Click that, click OK. So now this report is just showing me transactions that have come in via that form. Additionally, if maybe part of your online fundraising campaign, maybe you're accepting donations elsewhere, but it's still technically from online, and you want to apply it to the campaign, you could still do that and basically add the donation on the constituent and apply it to this online donations campaign. So in order to account for that possibility, you can also click the green or button, and you can search for campaign. And then we've got our campaign was called Online Fundraising. Go ahead and click that, click OK. I don't know if I have any additional ones that have come in, but basically what this is doing now is we're looking at that specific form, or if any additional gifts were applied to our campaign that we set up initially, it's also being accounted for as well. And so that's a great way to keep track of how's your online giving going using our reporting tools. And then the next thing I'd like to point out is back on the dashboard. And that's it's relatively new with Bloomerang, but we've got our first time donor calls section here in the dashboard. And what that is it basically pulls in the information for any of these donors who maybe are new to your organization. So if you've got a new online giving form out there, chances are you're going to have new donations from new people coming in. And when that happens, they'll show up here in the first time donor calls section. So what you can actually do is click on new donations here. If you just click on their name, it'll show you some more information about who gave, how much, what kind, or what type, I'm sorry, the date, campaign fund, etc. All kinds of useful information. And you can actually, if you wanted to give them a call and thank them for their donation, you can do that right here. After having done that, you can enter an interaction for having made that call. Or if you have someone in your organization that is kind of in charge of doing that, maybe this is that same person that's getting the notifications that a new donation came in, you can assign it as a task to them in order to just let them know, hey, this is a new donation. We really want to thank them. We want to start building relationships with them, so you can make a task for that user in your database. And it looks like we're just a little over time. I'm going to go ahead and call it a day on this. We really appreciate everyone showing up and asking great questions. Please check out our Academy page for more classes, and we'll be seeing you soon.